Hey, before we get started in the podcast, I just wanted to give you a gentle reminder that we have the Evolution Project coming up on May 17th and 18th up at Camp Oakley. And if you're interested in coming, jump on the website, myevolutionproject.com. You can sign up there, and we're really looking forward to it. This is your opportunity for your call to adventure. Well, I want to welcome everybody back to the Evolution Project podcast, where we're a brotherhood living an undivided life. And we believe we can inspire transformation through awareness, accountability, and action. And right now, I got my buddy, my fellow Canadian, Matthew Sneyd.
How's it going?
I don't know why, but I love Canadians.
Yeah, most people do. They're not very, what's the word? They don't cause a lot of issues a lot of times.
They're easygoing people.
Easygoing, yeah, for sure. I always like that about Canadians, for sure.
So a couple years ago, I took a trip to Quebec. By the way, I said it the right way.
Yep.
It's not Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec.
And I bought a Toronto Blue Jays hat, and that's when the baseball team was doing pretty good. This is like a few years back. And I remembered that so many people, it was like the best conversation starter. They'd be like, Blue Jays, eh?
Yeah. Every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
And I thought, I love Canadians.
Yeah.
Just really nice, great people.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'm on the hockey side of it.
You're on the hockey side.
Yeah, I'm not
right.
a baseball guy, but hockey, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Matt, tell me just a little bit about yourself. Obviously, we know you come from Canada.
Yeah. Technically born here, but
Technically
yes,
born here.
dual citizen.
Okay.
My parents moved here right before I was born.
Okay.
My dad came here because they wanted to get out of the cold. They liked it here. He had an opportunity to build Super Sliders, which was Magic Waters, which was the water park out at the point of the mountain.
So it's your fault.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. I remember how young or in the womb I was or whatever when they moved, but it was pretty close to around when I was born.
You were conceived in a slide.
I think so. I think I probably was conceived in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just as long as we're tracking.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Not usually the question I want to ask my parents.
That'd be a great Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. So
man.
I haven't gone there yet, but I assume I was conceived in Canada. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So lived in Utah now for quite a while.
Yep. My whole life at this point. I like it a lot here.
Yeah.
I go up and visit Canada. I used to a lot more when I was younger.
Yeah.
We had a cabin up there that we'd visit, and that was kind of our yearly or bi-yearly thing. And then we don't do that quite as much anymore. But I think as my son gets older, I'll start to go up there with our RV and stuff.
So how old are you? I don't know how old you are, man.
You have to guess based off how I look. No,
I was going to say 30s.
Yeah, I get mid to high 20s a lot, but I'm 37.
Okay. Yeah. See, I didn't think you were 37.
Yeah, I'm pretty old now.
Oh, well, let's not get carried away. Had a really you are successful in real estate.
Thank you.
Done a lot of different things with real estate.
Yeah.
Sold it, developed it, built it.
Yeah.
What else?
Remodel.
Yeah,
land flipping, land developing, rentals, large and small single-family, multifamily rentals, student housing. I think really the only thing I haven't done is probably lease options. They never really sat well with me as far as strategy. Done seller finance, partnered with sellers on developments, and all that kind of stuff.
So a much more broader spectrum of real estate than just I help people buy and sell residential real estate, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I almost became an agent at a necessity during the downturn. But I've always worked on the investment side and then got my real estate license just because there wasn't many deals for a while there.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I would say you're really resourceful and strategic.
Yes. Yeah, I think that comes from my personality. I don't know why, actually. I think it's a natural thing for me. But also learned some hard lessons through the downturn of 2008.
Yeah.
That I was a little bit more aloof and dumb and young, just assuming everything was going to go good. I always did well in school. I could kind of I was like a 3.7-ish kind of GPA student without really trying.
Yeah.
And so I went into business kind of still having that aloofness and cockiness, and then got woken up real hardcore when 2008 happened, went into a bunch of debt. to the point where like my dad was like breaking down crying to me because he had never really showed the books and been open with them, and I assumed we were doing better than we were. And
So you were in business with your father?
Yeah. I started in 2006, and he had done mostly dental stuff, like he basically helped dentists create a business plan and marketing plan, because dental students go to school for dentistry, no business, but they come out, they're supposed to run a practice, or they go work for somebody else's practice.
I've heard of business plans like this. They still exist today, right?
Yeah. I think some people probably still use his version or something like that.
Cool.
Our personal dentist used it. And so one of his buddies was like, basically, hey, I'm doing these flips on the side, and sending us pictures of the check. And when it's your friend, you can know it's true versus like seeing an infomercial or something and like, this is bull crap. And we're seeing 30 grand here, 50 grand here, 70 grand here. Yeah. And then I was turning 19 and first year of college, and he's like, what do you want to do? I was working at a car wash and a golf course and a pizza place. And I was like,
living the American dream.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty fun. But I was like, I would totally do real estate. And so went to do you ever hear of Ron LeGrand? He's actually still around. But he was kind of a guru at that time doing the info marketing space. Went to his 5-day real estate crash course. And usually in college, I was falling asleep, being late, not paying attention, on my phone, and
hopefully you had some girlfriends along the way.
Yes, that was the primary reason for college.
We've actually got 3 of them. Come on out, ladies. That's the real point of this podcast tonight. We're confronting you.
Awesome. Okay. An intervention. I very much was glued to the content. Like, I did not fall asleep. My dad's like, I've never seen you focus and stay focused for so long.
So it was like love at first sight kind of thing. You're like, I could do this.
For sure.
And you did.
Yeah. We came out of that, put into place some of the courses that we bought, and within, I think, 4 or 5 months, we had our first deal. And It was like it's a pretty decent flip. I think like 60 or 70,000, maybe 50,000 profit.
Dude, I love it. Like, whenever the real estate thing comes on, dude, I can just see this light bulb go in your head.
Oh yeah.
And you are like, you're in the zone.
Yeah, I can talk about it for hours.
Now, here's what's crazy. We actually didn't, we never, even though we're both in the real estate realm, and I knew who you were because it was like the Move Group.
Yeah.
But I'd never met you until Andrew introduced us.
Yeah.
And the first time I met you, you were in the front seat of, was it your Jeep or was it Andrew's?
No, he had driven his Tahoe up.
Yes.
At the time.
You had a neck brace on.
Yeah. I was pretty much immobile.
You were immobile. You actually told me, you said, I won't be able to stand very long. I've got this zero gravity chair.
Yeah.
You're coming up to the Evolution Project.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, dude, this guy's like tough. And I was like, what the hell happened to Matt?
Yeah.
And you're like, I've just had like literally like one of the craziest weeks of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. You met me at a low point. Yeah. For sure.
Your neck, what was it your neck? You'd broken a
Yeah. So what had happened is I had just recently separated. I was married, and we had just separated. Went to my friend's cabin and needed just to kind of release, get out. Brought my new electric dirt bike up, and
which are more powerful than anyone knows.
Yeah, be careful. And I was teaching people how to ride it, just messing around in the backyard of the cabin. And someone else had ridden it and turned it from eco to sport, and then I hopped back on it to like go cruise around, just like real quick, messing around, nothing crazy. And I'd gone off like a 4-foot rock drop off of like their stairs.
Yeah.
And when I hit the ground, it was on sport.
And you
so
goosed
full.
it.
Yeah. So I basically whiskey throttled it and wheelied, and the kids were playing, like, there were some of my friends' kids playing down by the fire pit. And so all this happening in a couple seconds, I'm like, well, normally I would have just, ditched the bike and like let it go and fallen, but I didn't want the bike to continue to run into the kids.
Yeah, this is like Spider-Man. This is all happening.
Yeah, so I just made the judgment call of trying to throw the bike into the tree and throw my body the opposite way, and did a decent job, but there was a pretty low-hanging branch, and luckily it was like a tree bush. It's one of those with a really, really soft but leafy kind of bark that like just peels off of it that you could use for like tinder for a fire pretty easily.
Yeah.
And so as I did that, there was a low-hanging branch and had a glancing blow at my head and basically scalped myself. I had 19 staples in my head.
I forgot that you had the staples in your head.
Yeah. So I got up from the crash, and I'm like, everyone's screaming. I'm like, I'm good. And
Are you like Last of the Mohicans? Like blood is just like flowing?
Exactly like that. Yeah. So I thought I was fine, stood up, didn't get knocked out, I was like, chill out, guys, I'm fine. And like 3 seconds later, just like a stream coming down my face. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not fine.
Oh my gosh.
So went up into the bathroom, washed it all out. And I'm like, it's 2 smaller cuts. We'll be fine. I was like, I'll just like Band-Aid it up
This
or
is
whatever.
this is the hockey player, and you just give me some super glue. I'll fix it. Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, I was really going to just put super glue on it, to be honest with you. But as I washed it out, and then I was trying to figure it out as I like looked at how big it was and trying to like pick the hair out of the way, I picked the hair up, and the whole tire thing like opened up, and it was like I had completely scalped me.
Dude,
and I was like,
not
okay,
know this part of the story.
Yeah. So I had to go. I was like, yeah, we need to go to the hospital. They were like saying call Life Flight. I was like, no, we'll just drive the hour, go to Heber Hospital or the clinic, and they had me in and out in like a half hour. No, I was like, do I need like any painkillers? They're like, if you're not hurting right now, you won't hurt later. So there's no nerve endings up there really, but lots of blood vessels. So it was a fun experience.
So this was on like a Saturday, and then the next Friday?
Yeah, I think the next weekend. Yeah, was that had happened, and I was telling Andrew about like my business partner how I was just not in a good place. I was definitely like going to let off some steam up there, and just being stupid. Yeah. And basically had herniated disc in my neck. So I think it was like C6 or something. 3 of them were herniated. 1 was really bad. That was causing nerve pain and numbness down my entire arm. And yeah, numbness in my fingertips. And so I was like, this is probably serious. Came to that, and luckily there was like actually somebody at Evo Project that their wife was like a spinal surgical assistant. And like he told me what he thought might be the situation, how to treat it, and what would happen, and it was like spot on. But he was like,
I stayed at a La Quinta Inn last night. Let me take a look at this.
Yeah, exactly. And so I
want to know who knew this now.
I can't remember what his name was. I actually ran into him the other day. Dang it. But no, like the rundown he gave me and the help he gave me was like perfect, and told me like the regimen, and he had a neck issue too, and his wife had all this experience, and so I just did what he said, and I'm pretty much good to go. I still have neck pain, but I always did from golf and stuff. Yeah. So it was pretty gnarly, but I'm good now, and I just went and like paid for my own CAT scan or whatever at like those pop-up spots that are just like a single location, because they're like $400, and let like a couple of friends give me the rundown of like what that meant, and I just did like everything I could. Like you said, when I'm determined, I figure stuff out, and I like to attack things like head on. Yeah. I used to procrastinate and put things off and not want to deal with serious stuff, and learned early on in real estate that the more you procrastinate and push things off, the way worse it gets. And so after a couple of bad situations, and then like my dad helping me and like figuring it out, and like this is actually a pretty crazy story, but like I think the one that made the most sense to me is like when we were doing real estate and we'd send letters to just, run down houses and stuff like that. And one guy that we were trying to work a deal out, our first deal ever, we had worked out a deal. We were under contract, and the son was not mentally stable, and he lived with his mom. He was like 60, he was probably 50. But he had always gone through and done a project, tore something out of the house, and then never finished the project, and was going to like Home Depot classes to learn how to like remodel houses. So we go in their house, and there's like, you can literally see the basement from the main floor. There's no bathroom. They hadn't showered in who knows how long. It was just a complete mess. And his mom's just like, I need help. I need out of this situation. So we had put in a contract, but mostly dealing with the mom, who's the title owner. The son, not being mentally stable, called me up one day, because I was kind of helping and being the main contact point. Yeah. And basically threatened to kill me and my dad if we had continued to buy the house. And I'm like, hang up the phone. I'm like, I don't know if we're buying this house anymore. And he's like, what happened? Told him what happened, that the guy threatened me, and he goes, hop in the car, let's go. So we go straight to the house, and he's like, we're defusing this guy like immediately. And like, he's doing this as like keyboard warrior. Like, he's all hot to trot on the phone, but like, we're not letting him push us around. And so we go up there, we defuse the situation. So like that taught me a lot of like, don't let things fester. As soon as there's a problem, go face to face, figure it out, not over text, not over phone, like deal with issues before they have a chance to bubble.
And that's been, it sounds like that was a great model that your dad gave to you, and you've put that in place. Yeah. And I feel like even more so in the last couple of years, like you've really embraced that.
For sure. It's been a pretty big point for me for, the last 5, 6, 7 years, probably, maybe even 10.
Okay, so knowing what I now know, like I'm sitting here thinking, you had every reason to just say, dude, I'm not going to the Evolution Project. I'll go to another one some point down the road. And you were well in your range of like,
Yeah, I had every
we would
excuse
use to do it.
But really, when I'm honest with myself, like it was perfect timing that I know I needed to deal with stuff.
So something interesting is you're actually one of the people that have come to a few Evolution projects.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah. And, so obviously our relationships developed over that period of time. And I feel like, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were hanging out about a month ago, I made a comment to you. I'm like, dude, I feel like you're a totally different person than I met. And then you said something great to me. You said, well, you never really met the real me.
Yeah.
Like you met me in this place where there was a lot of chaos going on in my life. And I mean, you've worked through an addiction with alcohol and you've really, I mean, more stuff than that, but I mean, you've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, to the person that's probably listening to this right now,
Yeah.
that maybe is emotionally, got scalped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their, emotional vertebrae are out of whack and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where do you start? Because, I mean, when you came up there, what was your intention? Was it like, Andrew says this is good?
Rip
I'm here
the
for my
Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Really, of like, I know I had been compartmentalizing and shoving stuff down and not discussing stuff. I'd always joked for a long time that I was like Dexter because I didn't feel a lot of things. I was, going through a lot of this work in the past year, like figuring out like I wasn't modeled like emotional intelligence and empathy in childhood from my parents. And so that made me a lot more disconnected from myself and my emotions.
Yeah.
And so that was all fine and dandy in like my 20s when you're like more ego and driven and it's cool to be a hustler and it's cool to be a player and all those kind of things like work to my advantage almost set in stone more of those bad things. And then
was it part of your persona? Like had you gotten to a point where you're like, This is actually a strength?
Yeah, I used to brag about that kind of stuff for sure.
Like you had everybody fooled?
Not even that I had any fooled. It was like, I'm more so probably in hindsight, like I was fooling myself a little bit, but like, I just honestly thought that was like a good thing. And that like, I would brag about that's like a part of my personality and stuff of, not being affected and all that kind of stuff. And like society from a masculine standpoint in general tries to like, don't cry. Like I remember at a certain point in my childhood when my sisters would like tickle me so much or dress me up as a girl or whatever that I'd be crying and they'd make fun of me because I was crying because I was the smallest, the littlest kid of 3. And I just made a decision I wasn't going to cry anymore.
You just shut that off.
Just shut it off. And I never cried for probably like 15 years.
So
like a handful.
So something interesting is as I've experienced you at the Evolution Project, I would actually say that you have been very in touch.
Oh, yeah.
With your emotions.
Yeah.
And you've been
reached a tipping point.
Yeah. So was that was that a tipping point for you, or like?
Yeah.
Because that week, I'm just saying, like you physically,
I couldn't hold it
emotionally, like there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was hitting a version of rock bottom, but emotionally going through a separation that I didn't want to really go through, and didn't want to get a divorce and didn't want to be away from my kid ever. Having that and an injury all at once just like blew the lid off of like the emotional cap that I remember and still have it happen subconsciously. Like as you start to cry, I can feel myself push it back down, and then I'm just good. And that was just like a skill that was just like automatic every time. And then it hit a certain point. I remember going to my parents' house and my sister's house and just like telling them what was going on, because a lot of people didn't know how bad the marriage really was. I don't even think I was honest with myself about how bad it was for a while. Yeah. Because I thought that through reading books and doing stuff and working on it, it would get better, and that it was. I just never would have had to tell how bad it was because we'd worked through it. And once it was clear it wasn't happening, like I just broke down and I like couldn't not cry. Like every time I talked about it, I cried. And it was just like very clear to me that I was needed to shed some stuff. The other wild experience from this is that like I also was getting physical ailments from keeping stuff in so emotionally, that I went to like my masseuse / Reiki chick, and like she was telling me stuff about my relationship that she knew nothing about. Nobody knew anything about it. Mm-hmm. And she was like, you have this and this so she was asking questions like, you're storing energy here, which means this must be going on or this must be going on. Like, what's happening?
Your body is manifesting all this stuff.
Yeah. And I was like storing it and getting ailments in my body from that. And I was like, holy crap, she just guessed this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just from like getting a massage and doing some energy work.
Yeah.
Like, I got a bigger problem than I think I have here that I need to like start paying attention to this.
So where do you start?
I started again in that same vein of attacking something rather than put it off. I like reached my tipping point, and luckily, like, I don't know, stuff just shows up in your life when it needs to sometimes, and like to not ignore it and like acknowledge it for what it is. It's like Andrew's like, I think you might want to check out Evolution Project. It's happening. I know it's short notice. There's a spot. And I just, with what I've done in the past around self-development and learning business stuff, like, I'm a yes man when it comes to that stuff. So it was like, yeah, this is exactly right. It's probably going to be uncomfortable. I call it like woo-woo stuff that like I wasn't really into. My sister kind of was, and I had some other friends, but I used to like think all of that's just like kind of like,
yeah,
not real.
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit uncomfortable, but I was like, I got to do this. There's no better time. So I started, luckily, with like, even with the path that I'm on now, Evolution Project was like the perfect, I just got lucky that it's like the perfect thing for what I needed.
Do you remember there was a moment at an Evolution Project where you felt like that welling was coming up and you were like, all right, F it, right? Like, yeah. I'm doing this. I'm gonna go all in. I'm curious. Like,
I mean, within the first like 10 minutes, man, like, I couldn't even start telling my story. Like I said, I don't cry very much, and I think I've cried more in the past year and a half than my entire life combined. Wow. Maybe canceling out like being an infant, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, even just telling and sharing, you create like a safe space around the fire there, and just telling where I was at, I couldn't even get like 5 words in without crying, which is not like me. Mm-hmm. So that definitely welled up. I think the other kind of tipping point of like, whoa, I've got a lot to unpack here was breathwork. I'd never done breathwork before.
Yeah.
And dealing with so much and bottling so much up, like, and also being ADD, where my mind is going a million miles an hour.
Right. So the thought of breathing for any extended period of time, it's like, how's this really going to work?
Yeah. Like, meditation wasn't a thing for me. It's still really tough for me. And I had done different, drugs, this and that, whether they were recreational or medicinal or intentionally, from an intention setting space. But like, once I came out of breath work, 2 things. One, I didn't know you could go there and get that type of experience not on assistance from drugs.
Yeah.
And 2 is the first time I had ever come out of something with actually a clear mind and nothing going on. And I remember telling you in the car, but like, I couldn't not talk about it and not cry, because I felt like I was a little bit robbed of like having that feeling ever in my life. It's like, it was almost unfair. That it was beautiful to be able to experience it and have that peace of quiet where my mind is literally has nothing in it. But also like, wow, this is super unfair that I've had to live my whole life without that.
Was it anger? Was it like a sense of loss or
loss, like compassion for myself of just like, most of the work I do, my takeaway and like thing I realize is like, I don't give myself a lot of self-care, self-love or self-compassion.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just like the loss for the younger version of myself having to like never experience that, and how sad that is for me.
Yeah.
Not in like an egotistical way, but just that's sad. That's not cool. That seemed unfair. Yeah.
Do you think that's true with a lot of men?
Absolutely. I think.
Have you noticed that, that like privately universal concept? Have you seen that more as you become more aware of this?
For sure. After you kind of quote unquote go to the other side and have more self-awareness and compassion, you tend to be able to see easier when other people are in a spot that you are in.
Yeah.
So I definitely experience that now, and that's one of my favorite things to do is help people now that like I still have plenty of work to do, but I get a lot of joy out of helping people get to a place where they can have breakthroughs like that or realizations like that as well. So it's everywhere. It's its own little whatever pandemic or epidemic or whatever it's called. It's its own major issue that I think I see I draw it in a lot. Now that I'm in a good place, like so many people are coming to me, whether they're dealing with marital problems or whatever it may be, or work problems. Like it's weird. Whenever I'm in a good place, I tend to draw people, and I'm a good person to voice things to and talk things through, and I like having deep conversations. So after, in the past, 6 months or so, like those people are drawn to me. So I see it all the time now.
So what advice would you give somebody? So somebody's like stuck. I think that's a very common theme that I find in people's lives, right? I'm feeling stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I came to you, which I totally would, by the way.
Yeah.
And I said, Matt, I'm feeling really stuck right now in my job or my marriage or life or whatever you want to call it, right? What would be like 2 or 3 things you'd recommend to somebody to be like, here's what really helps me when I felt stuck?
Yeah. 1, ask for help. 2, like I think in our society and myself, we just don't ask for help. We have too much pride. We don't really want to say that we're in a bad spot. And there's usually not the safe space created to feel like you can even do that. Then you feel the shame and the guilt, or something's wrong with me, and you don't want to let people know. I think the more you can go to a friend, anyone, and ask for help is huge, because that's what I did. And I was shortcutted, I think, the process drastically.
Yeah.
By learning from people that have been before me and getting advice on what to do. 2, do hard things.
Okay.
Meaning get uncomfortable. If you are resisting it, and if it's something that feels very uncomfortable, it's probably the thing that you need to do most. So going and doing a cold plunge or breath work or ayahuasca or whatever that was like kind of scary or weird, or for some reason I was resisting it, even though there was not really a screaming reason why I should. That's like your subconscious trying to protect yourself.
But it's also your like higher self that's saying, there might be something there, dude.
There's always something there. Like, it's funny. Andrew always says, my business partner is like, you're always on to yourself, right? And that's so true.
Totally.
And it's like when you resist, that's like your subconscious and higher self onto yourself. But it's like, so I try to be basically a yes man, ask for help, get advice, and then if something feels uncomfortable, that's what I go dive into. And if something even more uncomfortable or questions, I continue to like be curious and inquire in that vein of whatever I'm working on.
So we talk about this concept of like the hero's journey in Evolution Project. Ultimately, there's multiple hero's journeys in people's lives right now.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you're at in that process right now?
I would say I'm kind of 3/4 of the way through. I don't have it memorized, to be quite honest with you.
It's okay. I put you on the spot.
Of the different cycles, or different points within the cycle. But I'm very much coming out of a dark place.
Yeah.
I've never experienced depression or anxiety. I would say, because when you don't know what you don't know about what you haven't experienced, I was pretty incompassionate and empathetic about that whole arena. And now going through a pretty gnarly depressive and anxious state, I have a lot more compassion for it, but I'm definitely coming out of that. Like, I'm happy. I'm attracting the right people in my life.
Yeah. I'm
no longer kind of sucking energy and pulling from people. I'm giving back again because I'm in a good state of mind.
Yeah.
So I'm finally feel like I'm out of the darkness and like turning a new chapter. And like that hero's journey is like closing and like got the new one coming up.
Yeah,
sure.
And there's another one waiting right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the repeating cycle of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell you, you really have become a good friend of mine.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's been cool to experience you on this side of it too.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I really like the guy that I met 3 years ago. And I really like the guy that's sitting in front of me right now too. You know?
Yeah, it's I'm thankful for it. As much as it was hard, I'm learned so much in such a short period of time, and you had a lot to do with that with Evolution Project and just creating that container. I haven't really found elsewhere. I get like little bits and pieces of it, but there's something special about that scenario, being out in nature, being in a safe space, that like I went 3 times in a row because I was like, I wasn't through the journey, and it was very helpful. Yeah. And it's tough to find that at all, let alone for like a decent price. And that can happen quickly, like in 3 days, like major shifts. So I'm very thankful for that, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. I can't wait to fix your property up in Bear Lake.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do one up there.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love when you're sharing me the vision.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we finish, is there anything you want to any advice you want to give out there?
Yeah, I think that the main takeaway for people that might be in the darkness is like just do tiny baby steps. And basically, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to I'm hard on myself when I don't accomplish a lot because I'm an overachiever.
Yeah.
And I was in a place where I was just debilitated, and then using, alcohol and drugs to make up and be happier, versus in the past I'd always use them to be sad. But in essence, like, you got to just do one small thing every single day. I love the methodology of just being like 1% better.
Yeah.
Every day. It's not as overwhelming. And like, if you can be consistent with that, even if you're not even actually that consistent, but just doing one small thing each day is so impactful, which was weird to me because I always did a lot every day. And so when I felt incapacitated and stuck, it was like a downward spiral. But as soon as I just did like one thing and I was like a yes man in regards to like taking care of myself, it like made a huge impact. And so it's just like, just do that one thing every day. And that could just be getting up and having a shower and not laying in bed.
Yeah.
And, surround yourself with good people. But like, that's the biggest thing is like, if you're in a bad spot, just try not to get overwhelmed by the entire situation, and it doesn't take long. It's like 30 days later, you're like, whoa, I'm doing way better.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think there's lots of little golden nuggets in sharing your journey of where you're at. Onward and upward. You got lots of exciting, fun things. I saw a recent trip you did with your son down in southern Utah.
Yeah.
Broke the axle on your Jeep.
Yeah. Made it on YouTube, dude. For better or worse.
You're living the dream, baby.
Yeah. It's a good life. And that's the thing. It's like it was very weird being depressed and anxious in a situation where if I took a step back at my life and looked at it, everything was great. And honestly, I was even hard on my ex when things weren't great. And I was like, why are you not happy? Or why are you sad? Or why are you angry? Everything's great. But like, my life on paper looked great and still did. And even when I was in it, I was like going on cool trips and going to Italy and going to Hawaii. And I'd be like so sad there. Mm-hmm. And it didn't make sense. And that's the first time I realized like what depression and anxiety can do to a person. Because before I was like, just do happy things, just go do fun stuff, just be happier, just tell yourself you're happy. That always worked for me. But it's crazy how like you can have what is a cool life on paper but still not be happy. And that's where like self-compassion and self-care came in. Yeah. And that's like my biggest takeaway on the journey is just like taking better care of myself rather than punishing and being hard on myself or seeing how much my body could take before it broke down. Yeah. That's not a way to live life. But it's not always just what's on paper. It's really how you are and your quality of life just within yourself. And having a kid is huge, and focusing on him and my well-being for him has been a game changer. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, love your journey that you're on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Doing it, walking alongside. There's a Ram Dass quote that says, ultimately, we're all just walking each other home. Yeah. And I think that's true. For sure. Like you said, not doing it by yourself. Yeah. So exactly. Thanks for coming in today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And you're freaking awesome, dude.
Thanks.
See you, bro.